Hello, welcome back, my Royal Rogues. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue, and tonight we have, well, quite a lot. You know how is this? You have peace a couple days, and then everything happens all of a sudden. And hands down, the most shocking news of today, where this morning when Kensington Palace issued the statement that Catherine had undergone heavy surgery. Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales, was admitted to hospital yesterday for planned abdominal surgery. The surgery was successful, and it is expected that she will remain in hospital for 10 to 14 days before returning home to continue her recovery. Based on the current medical advice, she is unlikely to return to public duties until after Easter. The Princess of Wales appreciates the interest this statement will generate. She hopes that the public will understand her desire to maintain as much normality for her children as possible and her wish that her personal medical information remains private. Kensington Palace will, therefore, only provide updates on Her Royal Highness' progress when there's significant new information to share. The Princess of Wales wishes to apologize to all those concerned for the fact that she has to postpone her upcoming engagements. She looks forward to reinstating as many as possible as soon as possible. You can imagine that the reaction from the Royal Rogues was instant, and from this space, we all wish and pray for Catherine, our Princess of Wales, to have a speedy and full recovery. And it's obvious that people will want to be informed about how she's doing. But was it really necessary that the press had to form a full barricade outside the hospital? I mean, don't they know the concept of privacy? That they all will be informed later on? And some of them even have the gall to complain. Cameron Walker, note to self, always bring thermals to work just in case you unexpectedly had to stand outside for a long time. Well, Cameron, no predicament that Elizabeth Arden Cream cannot solve. But now I understand why William is so private about everything that has to do with his family. Because those info vultures are reckless. And I'm going to talk about William and how he's been attacked too in a second. But first, I also need to mention that His Majesty King Charles will be admitted to hospital for treatment of an enlarged prostate with the understanding that it's a benign condition. Well, there's something that I have to say about a barrage of negative comments about both Catherine and the King regarding their recent health conditions. Today, I found out that the National Health Service in the UK is pretty much hated by everyone. So many people have terrible tales of being sent home too soon after heavy surgery and other circumstances that are out of the scope of the Royal Rogue. But what I don't seem to understand is why do they imply that the royal family are the ones responsible of this? I'm not going to post any of those comments, but for anyone who thinks that the NHS is no better than plain old dog shite, here's a suggestion: mind who you vote for. But well, before we talk about serious stuff again, let's add some levity to this show in the form of a blind item about the Emmy Awards. This permanent A-list, mostly movie director, said he had been approached and asked if he wanted to direct the movie The Illiterate One Is Behind. He thought it was a joke. His fee is more than the budget of the movie. They said they thought that he might agree to reduce his fee in order to have a chance to work with the illiterate one. He laughed. Well, you know that I'm a fan of movies, and my first thought was to try to guess which mostly A-list director were they talking about. Some rogues picked directors such as James Cameron because, the Titanic reminded them of the Sausage Saga, or Steven Spielberg since E.T. reminded them of, Well, but I think this doesn't fit the blind item because it clearly says mostly A-list director. So we need to pick a great one, but with a handful of misses. My personal pick is that the aforementioned director was Roland Emmerich. He's the brains behind hits such as Independence Day, Universal Soldier, 2012, or The Patriot. So the guy knows his craft and how to amuse audiences. But he is also behind stuff like Moonfall and the Independence Day sequel. So yes, that qualifies him as a mostly A-lister. The problem that the problem that I see is that even if we are talking about the goat of disaster movies, the sausage train wreck is pretty much out of bounds in terms of suspension of disbelief. And also, who's gonna watch that? By the way, I'm sure Prince William is a big fan of Roland Emmerich movies. I'm pretty sure he can even say quote lines from Universal Soldier, but it seems that William's taste for action and superhero movies is seen somehow as a flaw of character. It seems that Robert Hartman, the author of the recent King Charles biography, needed to add some spice to his book in order to secure sales, and he found no other way than to try to smear William in some way. I'm going to analyze some of the passages of Hartman's articles so you can judge for yourself. Whereas the king likes to assemble panels of experts around him, for instance, his son does not. William will say, "Don't get me a meeting with an academic. He might want to meet with a brilliant scientist who is doing something amazing, but he doesn't seek intellectual company," says one of those who has worked closely with him. So Hartman literally says that William could meet a brilliant scientist, but he doesn't seek intellectual company. Well, he has met a lot of brilliant scientists for the Earthshot Prize, but that doesn't mean that he wants to drink a pint with them, right? And also, he is a very serious, pragmatic bloke, and he doesn't want to make lots of speeches. The king liked amateur dramatics in his youth. His son does not have that same love of showmanship. Oh, a son who has different tastes than his father. Shocking! Who could have thought of, for God's sake? As one of his senior advisors puts it, he's one of the least ideological people I have met. Hartman is really trying to make it seem like this is a bad thing. I don't know about you, but my conception of a person who is not ideological, if of someone who is open minded, pragmatic, is less polarizing, and more adaptable to what happens around him. And in these times of blazing fast changes, that's something that we need. Hartman goes in with all the knives. In many ways, therefore, the royal changemaker is actually father, not son. That's a bold statement, to say the least. I mean, who is the king right now? There cannot be two change makers at the same time, right? And Hartman knows this, but the criticizing continues. Prince William gets most of his news from online sources such as the BBC website and briefings from staff. He prefers congent bullet point memos to the big bundles of documents the king likes to wade through. What is next? Prince William likes to scroll TikTok. Gross. I wish I was making this stuff up. When it comes to leisure, the king has inherited his late father's love of reading. Prince William, by contrast, will dip into books for information, less so for pleasure. Asked to name the prince's favorite author, one official replies diplomatically, "He's a box set guy." Superhero movies are, apparently, a particular favorite, especially Deadpool and all things Batman related. He just likes action flicks, says one friend. Yeah, you're discharged, Sarge. But this is the best or worst part. In royal circles, it is no secret that he does not share the king's sense of the spiritual, let alone the late queen's unshakable devotion to the Anglican Church. Give me a break. But I'm going to let Lady B of Belsize express this in her own words. No one has any idea what William is going to do when the time comes. It could be what? A decade? Or even two before he steps into that role. So Fag Ash Lil and Flappy Gumps ought to wind their necks in. Or our monarchy is not a bloody soap opera. I'm sick to the eye teeth with the diatribe. So, my royal rogues, I would love to know what you think about this in the comments. And remember to download my 100 body language tips right in the description of this video if you want to read anybody like a book. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue. And remember, much love and bliss.